Stoicism and Power. How Stoics understood authority, leadership, and command without corruption. Power is not what most men think it is. From the outside, power looks like control over others. Titles, rank, influence, money, visibility. But the Stoics understood something far more dangerous and far more enduring. The most corrupting force in human history is not power itself. It is power without self-command. This episode is about that difference. If you're here because you want leadership without arrogance, authority without cruelty, command without corruption, then stay with me. Before we go further, a brief invitation. If you value long-form, disciplined conversations about strength, judgment, and inner command, subscribe to this channel. Each episode builds on the last. Miss one, and the structure weakens. If this subject already resonates with you, hit the like button. It helps this message reach men who are searching for leadership without illusion. And if you know someone who holds power or is preparing to, share this episode. Not as advice, as a mirror. Now listen carefully. Because Stoicism never asked, how do I gain power? It asked something far more difficult. How do I carry power without becoming its servant? The Stoic definition of power. The Stoics did not romanticize power. They distrusted it, not because power was evil, but because unexamined power destroys judgment. To the Stoic mind, power meant responsibility multiplied by visibility. The higher you stand, the more your character matters, the more your impulses cost, the more your weaknesses spread. That is why Stoic philosophy was obsessed not with dominance, but with self-governance. A man who cannot command himself, the Stoics believed, has no business commanding others. Authority versus dominance. Modern culture confuses authority with dominance. Dominance relies on fear. Authority relies on trust. Dominance demands obedience. Authority earns alignment. The Stoics recognize this distinction early. A dominant leader controls behavior temporarily. An authoritative leader shapes conduct permanently. The difference is moral gravity. Why Stoics feared power more than poverty. Poverty tests endurance. Power tests character. The Stoics observed that many men survived hardship with dignity, but collapsed morally once authority was granted. Why? Because power removes resistance. And resistance is what reveals flaws. When no one challenges you, corrects you, or restrains you, whatever is inside you expands. Power does not change a man. It reveals him. Self-command as the first office. Before a Stoic could lead, he was expected to rule internally. Emotion, ego, desire, fear, these were considered internal provinces. If rebellion existed there, leadership outside was considered illegitimate. This is why Stoic leadership began in private. Not speeches, not optics, daily internal discipline. Why Stoic leaders avoided tyranny. Tyranny begins with emotional impatience. When leaders act from anger, punish from ego, decide from insecurity, rule from fear of losing control, they cease to lead and begin to dominate. Stoics train leaders to delay reaction, not out of weakness, but out of foresight. They understood that emotion shortens vision. The Stoic view of justice and command. Justice, to the Stoics, was not softness. It was proportion. Punishment was not for satisfaction. Reward was not for favoritism. Everything was measured. The Stoic leader asked, is this response necessary? Is it proportional? Does it serve order or ego? Justice restrained power from becoming personal. Why Stoics rejected popularity. Popularity corrupts leadership faster than opposition. The Stoics observed that leaders who chased approval lost clarity. They began to soften decisions, avoid responsibility, trade truth for applause. Stoic leadership rejected the crowd as a compass. Truth came first. Order came second. Approval came last, if at all. Power in the ego trap. Power feeds ego quietly. Not loudly, not obviously. It whispers, you deserve this. You are different. Rules apply differently to you. Stoics treated ego as a constant threat. That is why they practice voluntary humility, not theatrically, but privately, to remember, I am still subject to reason. Command without cruelty. Cruelty was seen as weakness. A leader who needed cruelty to govern had already lost authority. Cruelty revealed impatience, insecurity, emotional volatility. Stoic command relied on clarity and consistency. When rules are clear and applied evenly, force becomes unnecessary. The Stoic leader and silence. Silence was a leadership tool, not avoidance, not fear. Silence created space. It prevented emotional escalation. It denied provocateurs leverage. It preserved dignity. The Stoics knew a leader who speaks constantly loses weight. Why Stoic power was calm. Calm is not temperament. Calm is trained restraint. Stoic leaders were calm because they did not personalize opposition. They did not rush decisions. They did not identify with outcomes. This detachment preserved clarity. Power and mortality. One of the Stoics' most sobering practices was constant awareness of impermanence. Not morbidly, correctively. Power was temporary. Authority was borrowed. Command would end. This prevented intoxication. A leader who remembers his limits governs more humanely. The Stoic leader as a servant of order. Stoics did not see leadership as entitlement. They saw it as burden. To lead was to carry more weight, not enjoy more privilege. If leadership became enjoyable, something was wrong. Modern power and Stoic warnings. Today, power is everywhere. Managers, executives, influencers, public figures, parents. Stoic warnings apply more than ever. Unchecked authority breeds arrogance, emotional decisions, moral shortcuts, exploitation. Stoicism remains relevant because human nature hasn't changed. The man preparing for power. Stoicism was as much about preparing for power as holding it, because power often arrives unexpectedly. The Stoics believed, train now, so you are not corrupted later. Discipline precedes authority, the inner citadel of leadership. The Stoics spoke of an inner fortress, a place untouched by praise, criticism, success, or failure. That fortress protected leaders from flattery, fear, emotional manipulation. Without it, power becomes dangerous. Why Stoic leaders lasted? Stoic leaders lasted because they did not confuse power with worth, authority with identity, command with ego. They remained anchored, and anchored leaders do not drift into corruption. The corruption of power, modern leadership, and the Stoic antidote. Power without corruption is rare. That is why it matters. Power does not announce when it begins to corrupt you. It doesn't arrive violently. It arrives quietly. It shows up when decisions stop being questioned, when resistance disappears, when people nod instead of challenge, when your word carries weight even when it shouldn't. That is when power becomes dangerous, not because others change, but because you stop checking yourself. This is where Stoicism drew its final line, the corruption of power. The Stoics understood corruption not as immorality, but as misalignment. Power becomes corrupt the moment it stops serving order and starts serving ego. That shift is subtle. It begins when you justify exception for yourself. You confuse authority with superiority. You punish emotionally instead of proportionally. You stop listening because you assume you already know. None of this looks like tyranny at first. It looks like confidence. And that is why it spreads. Why power amplifies flaws. Power removes friction. And friction is what keeps character sharp. When no one pushes back, impatience grows. Arrogance sneaks in. Blind spots expand. This is why the Stoics believe power must always be paired with self-imposed restraint. If the world won't check you, you must. The Stoic antidote to corruption. Stoicism did not try to make leaders gentle. It tried to make them accurate about their limitations, their impulses, their mortality, their responsibility. The Stoic antidote to corruption was not rules imposed from outside, but discipline enforced from within. The man who governs himself does not need excess control over others. Wise Stoic leaders did not fear losing power. This is one of the most misunderstood aspects of Stoic leadership. Stoic leaders were not attached to position. They did not define themselves by rank, because they understood something fundamental. If your identity depends on power, you will corrupt it to keep it. Stoics trained leaders to remain whole without authority. That freedom made them less dangerous and more reliable. Power as a test, not a reward. The Stoics never viewed power as a reward. They viewed it as a test of emotional regulation, moral consistency, judgment under pressure, capacity for restraint. To them, authority was not proof of virtue. It was an opportunity to demonstrate it. Why Stoic power was quiet. Stoic power did not need theatrics. It did not need intimidation. It did not need constant assertion. Because real authority does not shout. It stands. Consistency creates gravity. Gravity creates compliance without force. This is why Stoic leaders often appeared calm even in crisis. They were not calm because the situation was easy, but because their inner order was intact. Modern power and Stoic warnings. Today, power looks different. It may be a leadership role, a public platform, financial leverage, social influence, parental authority. But the Stoic warnings apply exactly the same. Unchecked power today corrupts through ego-driven decisions, performative leadership, emotional reactions, short-term thinking. The tools have changed. Human nature has not. The man who seeks power versus the man who is ready for it. There's a difference between seeking power and being ready for it. The man who seeks power often wants control. The man who is ready for power seeks order. Control satisfies ego. Order serves reality. Stoicism trained men to desire order, even at personal cost. Preparing for power you don't yet have. One of the most Stoic ideas is this. You must live as if power could arrive tomorrow, because it often does. And when it does, your habits decide your fate. If you have not practiced restraint, power will expose that. If you have not practiced fairness, power will distort judgment. If you have not practiced humility, power will inflate ego. Stoicism prepares you before the test arrives. The inner citadel revisited. Everything comes back to this. The inner citadel. That place inside you that praise cannot inflate. Criticism cannot collapse. Power cannot intoxicate. Loss cannot destroy. A leader without an inner citadel becomes dangerous. A man with one can be trusted. Why Stoic power lasts? Stoic power lasts because it does not depend on fear, manipulation, image, force. It depends on consistency, proportion, restraint, judgment. Those qualities do not expire. Before we close, I want you to ask yourself something, honestly, not as a philosophy exercise, as a personal audit. If power increased in your life tomorrow, more authority, more influence, more control, what you would expand? Your patience or your ego? Your clarity or your impatience? Your sense of duty or your entitlement? Stoicism exists to ensure the answer is the first, not the second. If this episode gave you clarity, if it challenged how you think about authority, leadership, and command, I invite you to subscribe to this channel, not for motivation, for discipline, for continuity. Each episode builds a structure designed to withstand pressure, including the pressure of power. If you believe leadership without corruption still matters, hit the like button. It helps this message reach men who are preparing for responsibility, not chasing status. And if you know someone who holds power, seeks it, or is being shaped by it, share this episode, not as instruction, as reflection. Power reveals a man beneath it. Stoicism ensures that what is revealed is restraint, clarity, and command, not ego, impulse, or corruption. Until the next episode, govern yourself first.